What if I told you that Africa's biggest threat isn't the West? It isn't poverty, it's the very people elected to protect it. In a fiery, no-holds-barred speech delivered before African leaders, Professor PLO Lumumba doesn't just criticize, he exposes. He reveals why Burkina Faso's bold revolution isn't a glitch. It's a warning. And in his words, follow their example or fall like the rest. This isn't a speech. This is Africa's wake-up call. Lumumba opens with a bombshell. We claim to be independent, but our minds are still colonized. He points out how African democracy is nothing but a Western import. The ballot doesn't build nations. It creates kakistocracies, governments run by the least qualified. 40 out of 54 countries still print their ballots abroad. That's not democracy. That's dependency with a new name. Take the DRC, 910 political parties, a circus. Elections have become parades of power, not pathways to progress. And every 4 years, Africa's leaders chase positions, not purpose. Meanwhile, roads remain broken, hospitals empty, young people unemployed. Lumumba doesn't whisper this truth, he shouts it. In our own universities, we praise Socrates but forget Nkrumah. We quote Jefferson but ignore Sankara. Lumumba asks, why are African minds still colonized in African classrooms? It's time to teach our own thinkers, interrogate them, build upon them, because imported ideologies cannot fix a wounded continent. From Maputo to Addis Ababa, the African Union has hosted hundreds of meetings. Promises were made, declarations signed. But where are the results? No single passport, no unified healthcare, no progress. What's happening in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger isn't chaos. It's rebellion against systems that never worked. These nations are doing what others are too afraid to, rejecting colonial leftovers, rebuilding from within, and the rest of Africa? Either follow their example or get left behind. Let's listen to his full speech.
I can still remember the man for whom I am named, Patrice Emery Lumumba, writing from Tisville prison to his wife Josephine Opango and saying, I know I will die, but Africa shall be governed by Africa and her story will be told by Africa. And you can still hear that. We have been humiliated and dehumanized through slavery. We were enslaved by the Europeans. The French had their own. The Germans had their own. When in 1958, the French President Charles de Gaulle asked those who were colonized to vote yes or no, yes to remain independent but under French control, Ahmed Sékou Touré said, we prefer to live in dignity and poverty rather than to live in comfort and in slavery. And Guinea regained our independence in 1958. I never use the word democracy unless when I want to explain it away. Because what is democracy? Who defined it? The Greeks. It was good for them. The Americans redefined it. Abraham Lincoln saying it is a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. He defined it for themselves. When the Americans in Declaration of Independence are saying, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are born equal and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain alienable rights, that among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Slavery is alive and well. The civil rights movement is in 1960 when I'm alive. Which men were they talking about? Which democracy were they talking about? I talk about good governance. Because something must have been good amongst the Yoruba. That is why the Oni of Ife still makes sense. Something must have been good about the Emir of Kano. That is why it still makes sense. Something must have been good about the leader of Ijebuland. That is why it still makes sense. Isn't there something that we can get from there and create our own? This Coca-Cola-ized democracy from Europe and America, why must we continue to have it? This is the question. Your own kinsman, Adekeye Adebajo, writes a book which I commend to you, in which he says, the curse of Berlin, Africa after the Cold War. We are still wedded to boundaries. My kinsman and friend and the former Prime Minister of Kenya said he needs a visa, a single entry visa to come to Nigeria. Why? 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 Because of Berlin? I come here, my miserable Kenya shilling must compete against the naira, and you don't even accept it. You want the almighty dollar. Why? Why? It is governance, and we can do something about it. A lot has been written about it. My good friend, who is a professor of political science and himself a traditional ruler in Ghana, Nana Kobina Nketia V, has written a book about culture and governance in Africa. These are the questions that we ought to be asking ourselves. What is it that the Baganda do? What is it that the Zulu do that cannot be fused into something, and we distill something that is uniquely African, rich in diversity?
Lumumba's message is clear. Africa doesn't need pity, it needs purpose, not borrowed blueprints, but brave builders. We are not a weak continent. We are a continent weakened by imitation. Burkina Faso has reminded us of something powerful. That real change begins when fear ends. And now, the question is simple. Will you watch history or make it?